Hello again to Stationeers News. It's 2024, August the 26th, and today we had some quite lively discussion in the general channel of the official Stationeers Discord server. Because in the beta announcement channel, Simon, project lead, posted a short video clip of a camera sweep of what seemed to be Europa's surface, but it didn't look the way we're used to, not this blue, low-resolution voxel landscape. Instead it was really a foreign planet, or like a desert maybe. And then we saw Jupiter in the sky and we knew. This was a demonstration of the new terrain system that the developers had been announcing for at least half a year now. Why would he post such a thing? Is it the time? Not yet. It is not yet the time. Quite some work still has to be done. Now let's see what he had to say.
To give some more context, a while back I made a new project and created a new terrain system that is much faster than the existing system. Today I finally brought it into the main project and ripped out the existing system completely.
Side note, that doesn't mean that our game is now borked. There's more to the main release and the beta. There's also the developer version, or maybe only Simon's own development version. There is no more classic terrain system, there's only his new one. Moving on.
What you're seeing here is not complete at all. I still need to hook it into all the game systems. For example, you can't mine the terrain yet. However, after today I feel really good about making progress on this fast. Previously the terrain was completely procedural, and while procedural terrain has its own charms, it is actually extremely limiting with the resources we have. To make procedural anything interesting requires a vast amount of time of tweaking and optimizing. With the new system we will pre-author planets. Authoring these will include making a number of textures such as a height map, biome map, etc., and then generating the voxel data from these. While the authoring process takes a considerable amount of processing power, it then loads quickly when starting a game. This will mean that the area of play will be restricted, but that area of play will be infinitely more interesting than the rather homogeneous infinite planets you get now. We had a lot of technical issues with terrain features such as craters and geysers. However, with a hand-authored map we can place these by hand, which will get around the issues that we had in the past. The authoring process will be pretty straightforward, and the tools to convert the required textures into the voxel data will ship with the game, allowing the community to create and share their own worlds easily. I'm pretty excited on the progress I've made today and will keep you all updated on how it's going. This is not on beta yet, and I still have a lot of work to do before it will be ready for testing.
Now onto material from the discussion. Simon said,
I've only just pulled the new voxel system into the Stationeers project, but performance will be much better. I could make massive edits to the terrain in real time with no issue.
Now, to give you an idea of how far away we still are from that being a Stationeers reality, a user asked,
with the new terrain system, will I get the same location every time I land?
And Simon said,
that's an authoring question which we have not answered yet.
So this means while the technology is close to finishing, the actual incorporation into Stationeers gameplay is still fraught with a lot of open questions, if even such an obvious thought has not yet been decided upon. Simon says,
the current idea is to have about 4x4 kilometer arena.
For those who don't know what that means, one world box in Stationeers is 2 by 2 by 2 meters. So you would need 2000 Stationeers world boxes to span this entire map.
It will be easy to randomize the exact starting location, and it will be easy for us to have multiple mass maps, for example.
Another question that was brought up is,
with the new terrain, will we still have procedurally generated ore spots?
Simon says,
that's likely. Again, that's an authoring question that we have not answered yet. I think we'd want the option for both. Probably a biome system that allows us to define areas that will contain X.
Some users say,
no more procedural planets, boo!
Other games who don't have procedural maps suck because either you keep playing the same map over and over again, or you have community-made maps where 90% of them are bad and you waste lots of time finding a good one. And then you've played it and, well, same problem again and again and again. Simon says in regards to procedural planets,
probably not out of the box. However, it would be easy to make a tool that would keep procedural maps.
Simon, when the new system kicks in, will all planets be available?
Yes, or very shortly after.
Another question.
How is the replayability going to be approached with this? Does it mean that the plan is to provide several pre-built maps and rely on the community to create more maps? Maybe a 7 days to die approach? They have pre-built maps but also provide a random generator, and it's a very decent one.
I agree with what you're saying in principle, but I would challenge you to argue that our existing world generation actually offers what you're saying, and now you might not be arguing that. With the new system there will be a lot of options for authoring. For example, we could randomize biomes, placement of points of interest, even some terrain details. And as I mentioned before, it would be pretty trivial for a complete random generator to be used to create new maps. You might just have to wait a bit for it to finish authoring, and I don't know if we'll specifically support this ourselves.
And another wide open question.
If the map is gonna be finite, what happens when you get to the edge?
Simon says,
Good question. There's lots of ways to solve this, and I'll hold off stating what we are thinking until we've had a chance to actually try any of them out in the game.
a user suggested,
As a way to keep with the excitement of entering an unknown map, maybe the game could support a random map option for a given planet where instead of choosing a specific map for a planet, the game will choose a random one for the selected planet.
Now when it comes to level of detail, you know, when the computer pretends as if something in a vast distance is being drawn properly, but if you'd be getting close, you'd see this only drawn in a very rough way. The thing is, the moment you get closer, it will change the way it draws it, so you will never be the wiser. So about LOD, level of detailing, Simon says,
It's still in testing. There will be some kind of level of detailing, but it should be much more seamless.
regarding world sizes, Simon says,
4x4 is one of the sizes that we've discussed authoring at. It would be possible to make larger or smaller worlds. We may put some upper limit on it for performance reasons though.
a user question.
How much more interesting can you make a handful of barren planets with the authoring process in the first place?
Large geological landmarks that are a physical challenge, areas that are more dynamic in height, geysers, deep ore veins, buildings. A lot is possible with the system that is hand-authored compared to what we can do with infinite procedural.
Now some messages can for whatever reason not be loaded. Maybe they were deleted by the user or the user's messages were deleted by moderator. But to such an unknown message, Simon responded,
Heavy on the handcrafted. The procedural might just be where a specific voxel of ore spawns, but we still want to define that some kind of ice only spawns high in the mountains, for example.
well, this sounds very interesting, doesn't it? You have to travel to get oxide, maybe. A user said,
I'm missing a possibility for an editor unless it was mentioned somewhere.
There will be tools shipped with the game. However, they might not be exactly what you're thinking. To create a new planet, you will create a height map. You can do this in a number of ways, all of which would be better than something we could ship. You could create a height map in Photoshop, in Blender, or some other software. Then you import that in Stationeers and convert it to voxels. Then you will be able to make edits to it in-game, like in Creative, and then serialize it out as a world.
and now there's something for you, dear listeners. Simon says,
I should mention, a lot of what I'm saying is not completely set in stone, and we will always chance our plan if it's the best thing to do.
so please keep in mind, whatever I'm saying to you here, it's true, but it's not set in stone. By the way, regarding the images you're seeing, Simon says,
And I already have a good proof of concept for that working in my prototype. You can see it in action in that screenshot, although it could look better considering I just chose random textures from the project with normal maps that don't match.
I believe normal maps give details to the surface structure. Oh boy, so many deleted messages. To one of them, Simon responded,
A biome map is a top contender for how we'll author some of the data.
to a deleted message that apparently said that authored worlds are always more interesting than procedural ones, Simon responded,
I wouldn't say always, but creating a system that would be as interesting as something we handcraft would actually take more resources, which we do not have.
again the Rocketworks problem, or the niche game problem. People, remember, we have to get more players on board. The cash needs to be rolling. This thing needs to grow. Then regarding the authoring process, Simon says,
While you will initially import as a height map, you will then be able to bake in other geometry. For example, by modifying by hand or stamping 3D objects onto or into the terrain.
regarding world sizes, Simon says,
There might be an upper and lower limit. They certainly won't all have to be 4x4 kilometers.
then someone asked,
Are you implementing some of your experiences from Icarus regarding the new map's worlds?
you know, Icarus, the other big survival game that's actually much bigger than Stationeers, which I also have but didn't really play. Maybe there will be some videos in the future, who knows? To this, Simon says,
I haven't personally worked on Icarus, and I'm no world builder or map designer, but yes, as a studio we have learned a lot from Icarus. I know that Dean is very keen to create some maps, but we have multiple artists and world builders who we can draw from to create interesting maps.
Dean, you know, Dean Hall Rocket, the founder and CEO of Rocketworks. Regarding world boundaries, Simon says,
There's a lot of options: physical barrier, a text audio warning, invisible wall. A combination of all these, we have to figure out what feels right.
again, Simon warns,
Maybe I should tell the disclaimer to the team, since I just decided to come and say a bunch of stuff which we definitely haven't actually fully decided on.
so we have to take all that with a spoonful of salt. Again, regarding map boundaries, I suggested some maps might lend themselves to Pac-Man Infinity, others to a lake of lava you can't hope to fly past, others insurmountable mountains, others an invisible barrier with some terrain beyond, but no response on that. I'm sure you're all asking yourself what happens to vehicles once the new terrain system is in. I mean, I kept saying in my videos that maybe we can hope that the rovers make a comeback once we have a new landscape engine, since they had significant problems with the current one, which was one of the reasons why they were removed. To this Simon says,
and this will be the main argument for bringing vehicles back into Stationeers. I can't say now if that argument will be won or lost during our internal discussions about it.
So unclear. Now for those who didn't know, Simon says,
actually the atmospherics is only calculated where it's needed. In rooms, around objects that want to interact with the outside atmosphere, otherwise it's just references to a static global atmosphere.
Which in my personal opinion, if I may interject, lends itself perfectly to some kind of terraforming concept, because it would be only one little number system that you would have to slowly shift. Now, Simon said something on the topic of LOULAN.
We can actually think about bringing something like that back. If the number of things in the world is known, instead of unlimited, then you've got a performance budget that you can work with.
Now this sounds promising.
So will we always be landing and starting in the same location on a map?
I think that will be up to the map author. They should be able to choose a specific spot or an area.
Area sounds like random spawning in a certain region which is far away from the thing behind the mountains that you have to discover or whatever. Again, about generation details, Simon says,
short answer is that the details are yet to be decided. Where I assume it will end up will be that we author areas where we want specific ores to spawn, and then there will be random within that.
A user says,
I guess it would be harder for modders to create new worlds as well. I enjoyed playing on harder worlds.
If anything, it will be easier to create new worlds.
I'm looking forward to that. And then Matty, responsible for everything, joined the discussion regarding storm events.
We're not working on it currently, but it's something we're thinking about. It might end up helping us show phase change in the global atmosphere.
Huh, what's that about? And regarding different storm events, Simon says,
we've talked about it quite a bit and started talking about it more seriously recently. Nothing started there yet though.
And then Rocket, CEO, joined the discussion.
There's nothing to suggest that overhangs are not possible. The final terrain can be binarized.
So it's just a step in the creation process. It's not like we're stuck with just height maps. Oh, by the way, in January he said,
I think the terrain refactor will massively increase the visual appeal of the game. Combined with the orbit plus planet coexisting, it will give a good frame for a proper loop. I've already got a proof of concept for a station in orbit and a base on a planet in the same session at the same time, and Simon did a proof of concept for the terrain.
Again about terrain generation, Simon says,
overhangs and storage of voxel data. The height maps are used during the authoring process only. You take the height map and it chugs away for a few minutes and outputs voxel data stored in an octree. Once an octree format can be modified and stored again. Small world size, 4 by 4 kilometers is not small. I've seen a lot of Stationeers saves and most fit well within this area. Sure, I've seen a few where people have intentionally gone out further than that, but not for any real reason. Also, an authored map will feel much larger than a procedural map of the same size. I think largely you shouldn't be worried. It sounds to me like you like what we're building. Once the data is in the octree, it is very fast to access and modify.
So something we should all keep in mind, when this new terrain drops, we will have to start over. Our worlds cannot be loaded anymore. I believe this has been an official statement a few times. I don't have a quote right now, but I'm pretty sure. Though hopefully you know by now that you can go to older Stationeers versions easily via Steam, right mouse button on Stationeers in your Steam library, properties, betas, and then you can select, for example, the beta that I've been playing this whole year and I don't regret it. There's also the pre-Rocket refactor, which is before Christmas 2023. And then there's the pre-phase change. You can bet your asses that there will be a new entry in there when the new terrain system drops. So your current worlds can still be played, you will just not get the new update then. And so for that I recommend, if you're dancing between game versions, you should turn off autosave, else you will regret it. And there you have it, that's all the information that dropped today. I hope it wasn't too boring for you, and I hope we don't have to wait for too long until we see some movement on this new front. Because certainly this new terrain system, not just because it will break all save games, will begin a new chapter of the Stationeers universe. Because once we have finite worlds, we will be given reason to travel to other locations. So that will kick off something that we have been waiting for the longest time: missions, story, a campaign. There's actually a nice idea here that someone on Steam wrote, or on Discord, I don't remember. Why give access to all the worlds right away? How about the campaign is you start on the moon, you move on to Mars, then Europa, and so forth. That to me seems like not the perfect idea, but a very good one. Anyway, that's it for today. Definitely see you again next time.